Welcome to Raging Bullets, a comics fan podcast, episode 759.
Raging Bullets, a podcast for comic fans on the internet.
Download or stream it now.
Hosted by the legendary Sean and Jim. Spoilers are ahead.
Let's talk some comics now.
The Raging Bullet Show. Let's go.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the Minister of More Gooder, managed to disappoint Captain America not one, but 2 episodes in a row, and of course is the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we are going to finish off Marvel Superhero Secret Wars with issues 10, 11, and 12. Big content. We'll also talk a little bit about how this series got generated and where some of the characters go afterwards, very briefly, in this spoiler-filled episode. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
It was funny. I was getting ready for the show, and I realized I forgot to do my order for DCBS. But Fortunately, you always got a little bit of leeway with them. So we're still up and running on February, and I was glad I was looking at DC because we've got a lot of Superman Day stuff going on. Superman Day 25, multiple one-shots out there, various prices from as low as 38 cents all the way up to $8.99, depending on what variant cover you want to go with. Plus, there are some free comic book day stuff out there going on, so please check out DCBS, and thank you.
Yeah, this year in particular, Free Comic Book Day is something I'm highly interested in because of all the stuff going on with Diamond. So I'm glad that we're still going forward with Free Comic Book Day. I think it's important for comic book retailers, and I hope that that gets addressed to keep going as an event, as far as some distribution outlet for that to be a vehicle for comic companies to get the word out on what they do, and comic book retailers to take advantage of having those events that bring in potential new clientele to their shops. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have their deals of the week. Green Lantern Trade Paperback Volume 2, Love and War, $19.99 regularly, 50% off, only $9.99. Hack Slash Deluxe Edition Hardcover, Volume 5, $49.99 regularly, 50% off, only $24.99. They have 2 different versions of Marvel Masterworks Invincible Iron Man, hardcover number 18. These books are $75 regularly, 46% off, only $40.50. The Penguin Trade Paperback Volume 2, All Bad Things, $19.99 regularly, 50% off, only $9.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. Ask. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot, not of the books we're covering on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy, the show.
Does this mean I can chop you up and it won't hurt?
No.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. All right, then let's talk some comics.
It seems to run on some form of electricity.
All right, Jim, so we're going to be doing the wrap-up today of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars with issues 10 through 12. The writer is Jim Shooter, pencilers Mike Zeck and Bob Layton, the inkers John Beatty with Jack Abel and Mike Esposito, colors Christy Shield and Neil Yomtov, the letterers Joe Rosen, the editors Tom DeFalco. And apologies for any name butchery. One of the things that I really like about getting collected editions, and I have actually 2 different collected editions of this. I have a regular collected edition, which has extras, and I have an omnibus, which has extras. And there were some pieces that I didn't realize in this. Did you know that Kitty Pryde was originally supposed to be in this?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I don't know what, I should say I don't know what led to the cut. I have a pretty good idea what led to the cut. They came up with a storyline that they wanted to go down the road with Colossus, and her being there would cause a major problem. But she was on the original cover art. She was on the original pages. She was actually, when the whole team is like that, there's that long shot of the whole team, and they're first on the Beyonders station, and they're like, shocked by and dismayed. She was there. And then the multiple pages afterwards where they were like looking at the planet being formed and stuff like that, she was there. It was that Ariel costume. Remember when she had that the greenish costume with the greenish eye, covering around the eyes? It was that costume that she was wearing. So, that's puts it in the perspective of the time frame. She was actually a part of, there was a Marvel Age issue, The Secrets of Secret Wars. She was actually on the cover of that issue.
Oh, cool.
Spider-Man, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, actually, I like that they didn't include her because of the story going on with Colossus, but part of me would have loved to seen her in there with them still doing this story. That could have made things really interesting with her there and him developing the feelings that he's developing and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it would have been incredibly interesting to see that. But I get why the exclusion of her, I think, gave Peter more time to be, I think, all in when he makes the decision, which I think led to those interesting interactions with the Human Torch, where I think a lot of that drama, instead of the Torch, would have been directed at more of between him and Kitty Pryde.
Yes.
I don't know if it would have ended the way that it did. Like, I wonder if Kitty being there would have caused a change in the whole thing. The conflict would have been too much for Colossus at the time. I don't know. It would have been, I think, a very different story. The toy line piece, we talked about this kind of organically throughout it. I think it's important to note again, though, this came from a toy line. The idea was Mattel wanted to do some toys, and that led to this. They did 2 runs of the toy line, and the first run involved characters straight from it. The black Spider-Man suit was not a part of the original batch of them. The first batch was Captain America. It was Kang, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, Doctor Doom, Doc Ock, and Magneto were in the original Series 1. And it was the classic costume Spider-Man. It wasn't until Series 2, which Series 2 only had one character that was in the Secret Wars comic. It was Spider-Man. The other characters, because they were starting to get ready to ramp up for Secret Wars 2, and not all of these characters were like prominent figures in Secret Wars 2, but it had Daredevil, really cool version of the Falcon. It had Baron Zemo and the Hobgoblin. At this time, Mattel was starting to have, like, Intellivision. Remember Intellivision back in the day? Yeah. Well, Intellivision tanked, so Mattel was, like, taking major financial hits. So this line wound up becoming a victim of that because, they're licensing with this. So this is, your profitability obviously is going to be in a different margin than when toys you're creating yourself. So they created a Series 3, but, like, midway through production stopped. So they only released them in Europe, and it was 3 figures. It was Iceman, Electro, and the Constrictor. Again, characters who were not in the regular Secret Wars. Some of these characters, because Secret Wars 2 is a much bigger crossover, and at some point in time, hopefully we'll get a chance to do... I'd like to do Secret Wars 2. You read that. Yes. Did you read that back in the day?
Okay, so here's... With Secret Wars, you know how, like, I have gaps in memory?
Okay.
Secret Wars 2, I have even more gaps. And I remember reading Secret Wars 2, and there's a couple scenes I vividly remember. But I have so many gaps. I do not remember how Secret Wars 2 ended at all. I have zero memory of that. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how did it end? And I cannot place it at all. Part of me, I may end up reading it after we're done here, just because it's driving me nuts. I got to know how Secret Wars 2 ended.
You may want to hold off, and I'll tell you why. Because I do think down the road, like maybe in 2025, I think we need to put Secret Wars 2 on the slate.
Okay.
Because we have a number of things going. We've got a lot coming up. But I think before we jump into Secret Wars 2, I'd like to do it this year. I think in 2025 we'll make it a point to do Secret Wars 2. Only because we're in the same boat with this one. Like, this one I have a lot more vivid memories of. Secret Wars 2 I do not. I remember Secret Wars 2 being one that I enjoyed. I remember not enjoying it as much back in the day, which I would be interested to read it now to see how I feel about it now. You know what I'm saying? After years of not, having experienced a lot of different crossover events, now going back and seeing Secret Wars 2, it'd be a fun one, I think, to just revisit as far as what do I think about the story today, in light of how we expect events. Because remember, this one we're talking about today is really tight. It was a 10 to 12, it was a 12-issue series, but, like, the issues are packed with lots of content, and there's no fluff in this at all. Whereas Secret Wars 2, because it was crossing over, I remember it was crossing over into a lot of stuff. I remember at the time that was new to me on that level. And I remember having trouble keeping up with the story, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
So I'd love to read it today, being much more seasoned at navigating events, to see how I feel about Secret Wars 2 today. And again, these are like very similar to what you're representing right now. I'm throwing out very vague memories of what my Secret Wars 2 experience was. I've never read it again since then. It's just not one of those that I remember at the time reading it multiple times, as I did all of my comics back in the day. But we're going back to the 80s.
Yes.
I don't remember. I remember what the premise was, and I'm dancing around some of this because what I do remember, I don't want to talk about now, because I feel like we'd be better served actually having a Secret Wars 2 conversation, and I also don't want to spoil anything. So I'm dancing around it, but I'm sure you and I both have more memories than we're sharing here at the moment. But I'm with you on how did that wrap up? We're all still here, so I remember it wrapped up pretty good. So, I mean, there's that, right? So without further ado, let's talk about Secret Wars. And at the end of it, I think we'll talk a little bit about where the universe went after this, like what happened to some of these characters. Because so keep in mind, we'll take at the end of issue 12, we'll do a quick little timeout reminder that, hey, we're going to get spoilery about what comes afterwards. And if you don't want to know that, this is the time that you'll want to take a little breather and maybe end the episode. But let's talk about issue number 10. So we were left at the end of issue number 9 with Doom making Claw into cutting him up and making him into this machine that he was using to absorb the power of Galactus. And that's where we're kicking off in issue number 10 with our heroes reacting to all of this. What I really remember in scope and scale-wise was there's moments where we've got the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, and this is yet another situation where they are helpless. I did not realize how brilliantly this was handled back in the day, and I'm only now appreciating that sense of helplessness that I know I would have felt when I was younger, but I wasn't outwardly as in awe of it as I am now, where I'm like, wow, this was really a bold move where the heroes are just watching this, and we're watching it with them. That part is something that I know I would have loved as a kid, just that feeling like I'm in it with them. And these are the biggest and the best of Marvel's heroes, and that's the feeling as I'm looking at the start of this issue. And that's something, as I've mentioned many times on the show, if you're like, Sean, what are some of these stories that you really, really love? What makes you love them? It's this kind of stuff. That's the thing that makes me still geek out. It made me geek out as a kid. It makes me geek out today. That's why this is one of those stories that I wanted us to do here. Didn't realize how much of an impact it would still have on me today. That part was really a surprise. It reads differently now in all of the right ways. So we see our heroes' reactions. I like the X-ray shot in the next page.
Yes.
Where you see them. It's kind of like this is so brilliant and such a vibrant use of energy that we could actually see through people. And even seeing Captain America in shock and awe at the end of it. Because he's our confident guy, right? When no matter if things are going horribly wrong or if we're winning, Cap is kind of your guy who is constantly processing, constantly strategizing. He's sitting there. That look of Captain America with his jaw dropped you see it with Captain American comics, but it's usually saved for something horrific, something out of his control. And it was really, really effective here.
Oh God, yeah. And the panel before that, I love how Reed's drawn. With the X-ray, how he's stretched out and how that for me, that image is awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones I was like, that is cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, and the torso piece and everything, it gives you this sense of awe-inspiring energy in a very, very different way. Seeing what was going on with, the energy being pulled towards Doombase and the heroes being recognizing oh no, like what we were seeing was bad enough. This is not good at all.
And we got an issue.
Yeah. I really loved the use of Captain Marvel in this. Because at this point in time when we were seeing her in this, I was not familiar with her. So this series was getting me very, very familiar with her. I started spinning out of this, grabbing issues of Avengers. Like if I was getting I mentioned the 3-packs. If the 3-pack had Avengers in it now, as somebody who wasn't like an avid Avengers reader, I was very, very interested in reading current Avengers. So when we were at Kmart or whatever it was, back in the day, this might have been even in the Gold Circle era, I don't remember. They always had those spinner racks and the 3-packs of comics. So, I would be usually looking for a Spider-Man or a Batman or something like that were, my favorite heroes, but I wasn't getting their other book, like monthly. Like if it was, I was getting Marvel Team Up, I was looking for Amazing Spider-Man or Spectacular. If it was Batman and I was getting Batman, I was looking for Detective Comics or Brave and the Bold or something like that in the 3-pack. And when you got something like an Avengers packed in, I was glad I got another comic, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I was getting all of the issues, so I wasn't as invested. This made me excited to read any of the characters that were featured in this. And that's, I think, where this story succeeded. It was like character and issues that I had of these characters that I previously would have traded with friends for other things that I wanted. Like, now those aren't going anywhere. I want to go through those. And instantly, some of the trades I made in the past were regrets.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I have that issue. I did read it, but like, what happened? I kind of wish I had that back right now because I know I saw her in there and I really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. So these type of things did it. Using her as a scout was really great. And I think this series did a great job, and this just shows the strength of Jim Shooter and the editorial team in recognizing the power sets of the characters and how they should be utilized in this. When characters split off, there was a reason. Her splitting off and doing this, there was a reason, and there was also a consequence. And I loved that of this. That, her being there as a scout gave them a reason. I liked how Charles, she was ready to leave, but we've got a member of the team now we're not used to having. Charles, with his telepathy, he's now able to make her eyes useful for Reed Richards, who we really need analyzing this situation. And I loved how that played out. That was such a cool squad-based action and an example of a team who, these teams were splintered before. They had not had a chance yet to develop this type of working relationship. And I love that in here we're seeing that developed. It wasn't something that was instantaneous. Charles had to explain to them how this worked. And in the same way, he's explaining it to the reader who maybe is not an X-Men reader. That was great.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, and again, usage of, as you said, usage of the team, breaking it down, each part, is just, that, for me, has been one of the neat things about the story arc. And again, Captain, like you, I was not familiar with Captain Marvel at all. So going through, I can remember going through seeing these little bits and little things like, oh, who's that? Who's that? There was a lot of times I remember, going, oh, who's that? And I loved, the fact that they're interacting them with the people I knew. Like I knew Xavier, I knew Reed, I knew Cap. So having them tie in with her, to give us a little bit more understanding. I knew who obviously Doom was. No idea who. No idea who Claw was. So seeing how Doom cut him up and used him, like, oh, that's kind of neat, So there's some cool usage of this. Again, the complexities of a team dynamic. They magnified with this, where you think about it, for a period, we had 3-4 separate teams, but each one was giving enough screen time that it was able to develop their characters, develop their story arcs and whatnot. So, this again shows, just brilliance of the creation in that they knew exactly how much to go with this. And then even going beyond that, when Doom gets this shot of power,
Yeah.
Him dealing with how much massive energy and new power and awareness that he had, I absolutely loved it. Because again, you see the shock and awe on the iron mask of Doom. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it multiple times. I love when they show emotion on that within the story. And then you see Doom just dealing with it, I must control this, I must separate, and just the power that he's recognizing, but he is Doom. He can take it all in. And I love just that notion, that concept of who Doom is and who Doom becomes, to the point where he's like, I can see everything, including a spy. And I'm like, oh, and even Kevin Brown was like, uh-oh. I love that panel, especially because the power of the page flip. She goes, uh-oh, you flip the page and you don't know what happened to her other than Xavier saying, I've been cut off from her. We got a problem. I love that.
But let's go back for 1 second. Because I want to comment on Mike Zeck's artwork, because this is where, you start recognizing that certain artists are masters, right? We talk about Doom's mask. Mike Zeck allowed you to zoom in on Doom's face. You can see his eyes.
Yeah.
What is happening? If you look at that panel, look at the detail in what he did with the eyes to show that reaction. That's an example of a master at work. Yeah, they do some kind of that mask trickery and that type of thing. This isn't mask trickery here, though. The eyes. The eyes, they always say the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? My gosh, did Mike Zeck make those eyes work through those little rectangular slits that come through the mask? You are zoomed in on the eyes in a way that is so powerful. And then that psychedelic, disorienting panel below it, really adding this sense of confusion and being overwhelmed to what Doom was doing was great. But I'm a big fan of what he did with that one panel, as far as establishing everything. And I'm adding on to what you're saying, no way disputing what you're saying. It's that's a master when you're like, well, we got the limitation of the mask, right? And we can do some of that mask stuff that we do. But what if I show the eyes? What if I, really tell the story through the eyes? I am not an artist myself. I appreciate talent when I see it. And that's an example of something where that was really emotionally effective. And when you do that with Dr. Doom, it establishes this sense of this is different. This is something bigger. Doom is usually like when he's bloodthirsty with power, right? So usually used to seeing when Doom absorbs power, him take a much more immediate, powerful stance. This is not that. We'll eventually get to some of that. But this journey that Doom goes on is a very, very intriguing one. And this starts to right away build a sense with Doom is playing with forces that he's not yet prepared to handle. And we as a reader are going along for that ride. And that was something that was genius in this. Again, I don't know that I appreciated it to the level that I do right now. Oh my gosh, is this genius? And does it hold up something fierce? Because that emotion is powerful. Powerful.
And I'll tell you, I know I did not appreciate this when I was first reading it. I'll be blunt here. I know as a kid, I did not recognize just how awesome this was and how much power truly Doom had going through him, and just appreciate the artwork and the storytelling that they're saying with this, this power fluctuation in Doom. And that's something that, again, I'm so glad we're covering this again, because I get to reread this story. And I think I know I appreciate this story more now than I did as a kid. I thought it was cool, and I remember Doom getting all this power as a kid, because I remember, going, but again, it's funny. I didn't remember Galactus, but I do remember Doom getting this influx of power. And in my head, my memory was Doom fought the Beyonder, not Doom fought Galactus. And that was the thing, which is coming eventually. But, this initial stuff, because I'm remembering all this stuff, where Doom gets this massive power surge. And I remember the heroes going, oh, we got to figure out what's going on here. you know. And even I remember some of this, with Magneto and the ship, grabbing the ship, and all the heroes in there, and Magneto's using his power to carry the ship, and even this conversation between Wolverine and Cap. Because this was something I do vividly remember. Just the conversation that Wolverine has. Because at the time, you think Wolverine really wasn't the big, rah-rah, mutant kind of guy. He was Wolverine. He was a bit of a jerk sometimes. And this scene, I remember him standing up to Captain America about Cap's highfalutin ideals. You're a champion of the American dream, fighting for liberty and justice, but only for your kind. For humans, for regular Americans. But you just watch, you just stand by, watch. Mutants are being persecuted, don't you? When you have your own, have you ever fought for our rights? And I vividly remember this moment of Wolverine calling out Cap. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is awesome.
It is an interesting sort of relationship here because Wolverine's being unfair to a certain extent, but he's being unfair because society's made him that way. And that's the part that I love. I'm Team Wolvie on this one. So I want to be clear. I was and am still 100% Team X-Men in that piece. But, understanding Captain America and who he is and what he believes in, I think there was a point in time for dialogue there. I think you got to be fair in the fact that Cap has fought against Magneto, where Magneto has been looking to kill and maim and destroy the world. So Cap has a point in those confrontations where he is at ease. I'm not at ease. I'm sorry, where he's wary of what is going on with Magneto, and Wolverine itching for a fight and itching to fly into face of authority is something so interesting because we get to see, and we'll talk about it more later, the two sides of Wolverine. And this is one of those stories where we get to see a little bit more about Wolverine's respect for soldiers and for people who have honor and have a code and stand up for something. And he gets there with Cap. And I love this journey because this is pivotal. This reaction with Wolverine is authentic. It's very, very Wolverine. Where they go starts to build to some interesting team-ups with the two of them. It doesn't happen a ton, but when Captain America and Wolverine team up, it's special. There is a Captain America annual that is also drawn by Mike Zeck, where there is a famous cover of these two going at it. And if you haven't read that annual, I urge you to seek it out. And I don't have the issue number off the top of my head, but I will put it in the show notes just because it is absolutely 1,000% worth reading. And if you're enjoying this artwork, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't seek it out. So just please look in the show notes for the annual that I'm talking about. Have you ever read that one? Do you know which one I'm referring to, Jim?
I know what you're referring to. I don't remember if I've read it or not, to be honest with you, but I remember the cover. I remember seeing the images of that cover, those two going at it.
And it takes place after this. So I think some significant time after this, but it is an example of where continuity works because it is these two in a team-up type situation again, dealing with a lot of the themes that they were dealing with in this, continuing to evolve that relationship. So that's why I'm going to reference it, and I will make sure to put the actual annual issue number in the show notes so that way you can easily seek it out. I give it a high recommendation if you're a fan of this budding relationship that's going here, because I think it's very, very interesting to see these two develop as characters. An example of where a larger universe can really, really work when you have these characters who they don't team up a lot, but when they do, if you remember the character's history, you can advance them in a way that is very satisfying for readers of whether you're a Cap reader or an X-Men reader or both. Their interactions. And at the time, much more, I was the X-Men reader. So Wolverine being in something Captain America made me jump to it because I was that kind of Wolverine fan where I wanted to read him when he guest appeared elsewhere because I wanted all of Wolverine's story, right? We didn't have the plethora of books that we do today. So a lot of times we had a lot of comics out there, but it wasn't like 7 Wolverine titles, 7 X-Men titles. It was, you wanted more X-Men and they were teamed up in another book. You wanted to seek out that book and read it. So that way you got that extra additional X-Men story. And so that stuff was few and far between. I really loved this whole Beyonder storyline with Doom, because when Doom got the power, now Doom is trying to figure out what to do with it and how to proceed, because his goal remains the same. And you were kind of right before. Talking about historically, you don't remember there being a fight between Galactus and Doom. In reality, there wasn't. Doom siphoned power from him. There wasn't really a battle to speak of. But the Beyonder battle is a battle, and we're gonna be talking about that as we're continuing to go through this. So it's something you weren't actually wrong. We took a break for a couple seconds, and Jim actually looked up the Captain America Annual for us. It's Captain America Annual number 8 from 1986. So thanks, Jim, for looking that one up, because that was driving me nuts. And it's a story well worth seeking out if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's worth bin diving to have the actual physical issue, because the cover's gorgeous. It's a very, very iconic cover. Especially with Wolverine slashing his claws at Cap's shield, it's kind of always, what's stronger. And I've always enjoyed stories like that. Especially back at the time with Wolverine's unbreakable, claws and Cap's unbreakable shield. We'll talk but what really is unbreakable these days.
Exactly. Well, just so you know, you're not going to find this bin diving. Or if you do, grab it immediately, because I was looking it up, seeing it upwards to $150 for the issue, and I think the lowest price I saw was like $25 for that issue.
You'll find it. I mean, what I'm saying is comic shops will have it. I mean, you're absolutely correct in what you're saying. You're just going to pay a price for it. Yeah. You're not going to find it in a dollar bin.
Yeah, you're not going to find that.
Yeah. Unless it's in like hoard condition. But it's well worth having. I mean, the comic shops will have it at various prices. Comic shops run sales all the time, too. So that's something to look for, see if you can get it when a comic shop's running a sale. And if you can grab it. It's worth owning. If you're a collector and you're a Wolverine fan or a Captain America fan, that's an issue. If you do not have it, put that one on your list as one that you're going to want to seek out. Nice part is you can read it first and make the decision if you want to own it. You can own it digitally in very easy ways, or read it on Marvel's app. A lot of different ways to get at it. It's interesting watching Doom analyzing the whole Beyonder. And I remember as a kid, so the club hits I do remember, because I remember how funny they were. Because he's talking with this head that's sitting sideways on the table that is still sentient. I don't know why this didn't disturb me more as a kid. But I kind of just went along with this. Oh yeah, that's Doom's able to carve people up, and they're still able to talk. I don't know. I'm remarkably well adjusted, being that this was, in some of my formative years, something that I was reading.
Okay, so a couple stuff on the comments you just made. Uh-huh. You're like, you said you're remarkably well adjusted.
Considering.
Questionable.
I said considering. That wasn't like saying that like I'm perfect or anything like that. I have issues. My wife will tell you I have issues. She lives with me. I was owning the fact that I have issues. I said I'm remarkably well adjusted considering. The fact that I can function and do a podcast is probably pretty good considering that I read this. I'm just saying. Doom's switch to the costume. I actually love that this Mattel toy, because this is what the toy looks like. I love that there was a storyline reason as far as like his costume was in tatters. So now he's creating this new armor. It's again him playing around with these powers that he has no idea yet quite how to control. And it was something that I really enjoyed seeing this piece. At the time, I didn't, as a kid, you're not recognizing that like a toy line led to this and how brilliant it is that they created such a good story around promoting a toy line. But it really is an example of Jim Shooter kind of going, all right, we're taking the characters that are going to be in, round one of the toys, and we are going to do something really special with them. This is what every comic company should take a look at this, because I feel like we are in a golden age of IP-based comics right now, where it's few and far between that you get an IP-based comic that's a stinker, right? Nowadays, we've got fans of the IPs that are writing IPs in comics or drawing IPs in comics, and they're delivering something on a fan level. And I appreciate that. But, back in the day when something was toy specific or even film specific, it was hit or miss. You'd get some really good things, and then you get things that, like, it was clear it was a cash grab. It just didn't, or the people creating it didn't really understand the property. So it was a mix. I'm not saying there wasn't ever any good IP-based stuff. There's some classics out there. But it really was, as a fan, sometimes you had to endure some stinkers in order to get to the quality ones. And this was absolutely 1,000% a creative team that was just batting at a very, very different level with care for their team. The discovery of Captain Marvel, like frozen that way, that's disturbing. I mean, and I really don't remember being... It's funny, I think after the claw piece, you think I would think that that's the more disturbing part. I find that less disturbing than her frozen there. I think it's that frozen paralysis that she's going through. That is, you'd think the dismemberment would be the thing that would get me. Nah, that's what's going on with her. I'm like, that is kind of shocking.
Well, and again, in a way, actually, it is more shocking what's happening to her, because she's frozen as a living hologram, and the question on is living and all that.
Yeah.
Whereas with Claw, I do love the fact that Claw does explain that it didn't hurt at all because he's just made of sound, down, down, down.
Yeah. Somebody's being cute. This story keeps cooking at this point, though, because you don't really have a chance to reflect on any of this, because Doom's already going after the Beyonder. And we are now seeing, this is the battle you were talking about. And I think this is why you, in your mind, were thinking to yourself, I don't remember him fighting Galactus. I remember him fighting the Beyonder, because this is the battle. Now we're getting right here. And I like that the Beyonder's kind of shocked by this. Stop, you cannot approach me. This is a very different dialogue from the Beyonder. Because before it's been the Beyonder kind of directing traffic, where now Doom is, to a certain extent. And that part is, we just got our heroes reacting to a world that is being just decimated along the way. We've got members of their team like She-Hulk who are still hurt. And, characters just kind of trying to survive. And, Mr. Fantastic gets taken out by equipment falling on him, which is not something you see with Reed Richards very often. Usually he's able to stretch and dodge and things like that. He wasn't able to. And Colossus is, during the whole time, this guy's love struck. I actually do feel like, I'm thinking, what if my wife was out there? What would I be doing? I'd be doing what Colossus is doing. This is really good writing. He's like, hey, Hulk, can you just check and see if she's okay? And I really... we've got a man who's sitting there, and he actually does the honorable thing. He's like, she's going to need comfort right now. It's not me. She's with Johnny. So let me get Johnny aware of what's going on. It was actually kind of noble, right?
Yes.
Because he could have kept that information to himself. Instead, he recognizes, whether I like it or not, she's in love with this guy. Let me make him aware of the situation so he has an opportunity to react to it, which that's Colossus to me. Peter is a good guy. I don't know, I don't know if we're in the same place or not. I'm team Kitty and Peter at this era, but I felt like this nobility of Peter is something that I think was incredibly well written, because he did the right thing in telling. But there's not really much of a chance when Johnny's kind of dismissive of it for him to react too much, because the battle between Doom and the Beyonder, Doom gets his legs severed during this battle, and he keeps fighting.
Yes.
We see him go to depths that like he is being just overwhelmed with power. And I mean, you see it. It's him basically narrowly trying to keep a shield up to keep himself existing. And this is a battle really that Doom's losing, and Doom's recognizing that he's losing, which is why he comes down to the heroes asking for help. He's like, hey, I'm fighting for you here. So can you help me help you? And if you do, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you what you want. Like, whatever your dreams are, whatever your wants are, I will give them to you if you side with me on this. It's an attractive offer that Doom is offering here. And it leads to another poignant moment in all of this. What goes on with Magneto? That's an example of where I wish, and it's what we're supposed to do. I wish there was one more panel. When Magneto is reaching his hand out, he looks back at Charles. I think Magneto would have denied it on his own. But he isn't given that chance because of the reaction of Avengers to this. And I get why they did it. I don't think the Avengers did anything wrong. But I think what Captain America steps up in that moment. And this is where he's showing Wolverine, you think you know me? You're wrong about me. We agreed to team up here. I think there may have been some mind control here going on here. You know, I don't know that for sure, but tell me we weren't all tempted by what he was saying, and it may turn out that we all might wish we did side with Doom, depending on where this goes, because we're dealing with forces here that are outside of our realm. I really liked Captain America's thinking in all of this. I thought it was really, really balanced, showing again why he was the right leader for this group to be able to try and bring everybody together in a rational way. It's, you know, the dialogue with Captain America. Oh my gosh, is he well written in this one? You would swear this was a Captain America book in the way that he's written.
Dude, I'll tell you, and it was funny, as you're talking, I'm just nodding my head along with you. You know, I would have loved to have a thought balloon, what's going on within Magneto's head as he's looking back to Xavier.
Yeah.
You know, just again, you know, there's that one panel they could do a whole issue on.
Yeah.
You know, just on that one split second moment. I think it would be awesome. But again, like you, I loved the Avengers' reaction to this, then even the post-action, and then, of course, Cap steps up. That's why he is a true leader. And I loved seeing these moments. As much as I was hoorahing Wolverine earlier, I'm now hoorahing Cap. I think this was, again, that great balance in the writing on how you've got to give these characters their different moments of spotlight. You know, and Captain America is Captain America. He needed to have a moment like this, and it's funny. I 100% think Cap threw out that thing about possible mind control. He wasn't actually thinking it. He was just throwing something out there just to try to get everyone to calm down. I don't think Cap believed that there was any possibility of mind control going on. I think he's just throwing that out there to try to get everyone to calm down so they didn't fight, because he recognizes we need to all be on the same page here. And again, that's who Cap is.
You think Cap's a manipulator?
Yes.
I don't agree.
And here's why I think that. Because sometimes as a leader, you have to do that. Sometimes you can't just always be, you know, golly gee willikers, pure and wholesome. You have to have those moments. And I think this was one of those moments.
He says we were all tempted. And I suspect that Doom was exerting some sort of mental control, and maybe Magneto got the biggest dose. So nobody's disputing him. It's an interesting point. I don't know. I guess I took Cap at face value with that. I do think you're right, and that like in leadership, sometimes you have to drop nuggets and things like that. He said he suspects. So I mean, he wasn't like sitting there saying like it's concrete, ironclad, exclamation point. There was mental control. He said, I suspect there was. I don't know that he was lying there, you know, doing any form of manipulation. I think he was rationalizing. This is my take, by the way. This is my take, by the way. So we might disagree on this, and that's okay. And so I mean, I don't take it as manipulation. I take it as Cap's trying to stand firm and rationalize, like, hey, wait a minute. You guys were all a part of this. Tell me you weren't tempted. I mean, and I actually really liked the logic of what he's saying. You know, Doom's offering his hand. Like, nobody, come on, guys. Like, nobody here was tempted by this. So now we're going to chastise this guy for being tempted. And, you know, I don't know. I suspect there was some mind control going on here, too. You know, was he getting the biggest dose of it? I think Cap's just rationalized with him, saying what's going, like, what, you guys didn't feel like maybe some of that was going on here? I think he's rationalizing with them.
Oh, could be.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not knocking Cap in this scene. I love this scene. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and again, I think, you know, I don't know. This is one of those moments where I'm like, if I'm wrong, and oh no, he was being 100% sincere and everything was saying, okay, that makes sense. That's Cap. Or if they're like, hey, he was doing a little bit of playing the game there. Okay, that's all right. I'm cool with that too, because he's a great leader. You have to do that sometimes when you're a great leader.
I think, and one thing we're 1,000% in agreement on, he is the leader for this group.
Yes.
And 100% I get it's either scenario that we're talking about here does not change my feeling on that. Doom's battle is something that I didn't really remember the magnitude of it being that this feeling of Doom losing like he did. And I didn't remember it being an origin story of Doom, which is so important to all of this because I love when you take a villain and give me some sympathies, you know, as far as what has he been through in his life? Why should I care? How did he get I didn't remember that he got his face scarred by trying to rescue his mother, you know, trying to find out her location, trying to make contact, that she's got this tragic story of her being captured by a demon because of her, you know, Mephisto, because of the fact that she had searched for things that she shouldn't be. I really liked seeing his backstory and how he gained a love for the arts like she did, the mystical arts, but also true science, and was merging them together and became the man that he was, the driven man that he was, because of so much of his life. And that part was really, really cool to see in all of this, as really from the Beyonders' perspective of trying to get to know this man, that he's taking apart and dissect, like he dissects half of his body, and not in the pleasant way that Kang went through it. No, I mean, like not Kang. I'm sorry, Claw went through it. I got Kang on the brain. Kang we'll get back to later, but the way that Claw was dissected, where Claw was like, "Oh, this is fun." This was not fun for Doom, and it really does give us a sense of who Doom really is.
Oh God, yeah. And I'll tell you something. I 100% completely forgot all this stuff. You know, and it's funny. The next couple pages, I forgot.
Yeah.
You know. So when I was reading it the first time, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is awesome! I love this." And I'm like, "I don't remember this at all." And I was like, "So for me, this read through was absolutely brilliant in that I love, you know, giving us I was again experiencing it for the first time again because I couldn't remember any of this. So I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and it also plays into, you know, how things plan out later on in this story. So I'm like, this is absolutely brilliant. I love that. He spent, you know, just 2 pages really on the Doom backstory, but it was plenty of time, some brilliant artwork, brilliant storytelling. You know, it's funny. There's a lot of, you know, explanation going on, and they spaced out. Everything is just, it's created so it flows nice. You know, this is a really brilliant flow for these 2 pages. You know, covering a lot of information, giving us everything we need to know about Doom, where he's going, and also setting up stuff for the future.
Yeah.
So I love these couple pages. And then you get into the heroes.
Well, hang on. Before we go to a couple pages, because I don't want to gloss over this, because what happens here with Doom is critical. If it was somebody else other than Doom under this does not go the way that it did. Doom's being dissected. Half of his body's being ripped apart. He's feeling that. And a lesser man would have just let himself die. Instead, Doom reaches out with his hand because his armor's sitting there, and that starts opening up the opportunity for what he actually did here of taking the Beyonder's power. If Doom had just let himself die there, that does not happen.
Right.
So you see the strength of the man. Like when he's reaching out, there's dialogue that's talking about the horror of what he's going through. Half of his body is being dissected while he's awake. It's like mind-boggling because that's half of his brain too, right? I mean, this is crazy what's going on with him, and the fact that he is able to have enough drive to get himself going in that sequence, then leading to where you're going. I'm sorry now, so please go forward with what the heroes are doing at this point.
Well, and again, if it's power of the page flip, you see that epic battle of doom, you go into the heroes now realizing as the building's coming down around them, they need to get out, but they've got villains trapped inside. And I always love when heroes do this kind of stuff, and they've got to step up, and they've got to, risk their own life to save the bad guys, and it's that true hero moment. And I loved it, the fact that it was Cap and Wolverine doing it, especially considering the stuff we just saw before. Now we're going back to these two heroes are two very similar in that they're not going to let people die. And I love the fact that it was also Magneto wanted to do this because, again, with his background with concentration camps and all that, he's not going to let someone die in a cage like a rat. He's not going to do that to these villains. So Magneto was going to go down, but Wolvie's like, no, I got this. You take care of the other problems. I loved how they did that. Again, brilliant tie-in to that moment of, Cap and Magneto, Wolverine and Cap. It was absolutely brilliant. I loved it.
This is the best line. Don't take this wrong, but you're a better man than I gave you credit for. I'm an attacker, and you're a defender, but we're both soldiers. I'm beginning to think you got room in your highfalutin ideas for all people, don't you? Even if they're mutants. And then Cap comes back with some of my best friends are people. A little smirk on his face. I really liked that his comrades at arms going through here and seeing that they're like-minded in what they're doing. Thought it was great. I did love that Wolverine stood up and spoke up for Magneto, saying, listen, you were questioning why we're saying that, like, this guy, will be a help and he will be an asset and we should be doing that. This is why. And the only reason why he's not down here is we made a squad-based decision that he would be better served up there than down here. And I was definitely your ground game. I thought it was just a really brilliant explanation that made a ton of sense. Yeah. And Wolverine showing the other side of him that we don't always see in the Berserker Rage and the poking at people that he does. This was, again, an era where as Wolverine continues to evolve, he becomes interesting because you've got all that crazy stuff that you really love seeing with Wolverine where he just goes off the deep end. But the far more interesting part of the story is that's not the whole man. And there's more to him. There's a nobility to him that you see in these type of moments that it's like, what is underneath that? Like, how did this dude get this way? And that was a mystery still at this point. And continues to, today it still continues to unfold. But this is why he became the guy. Because of this kind of writing with this character. The giant Doom at the end of it. Yeah. I really like that we're just kind of dropped into Doom's absorbed so much power that, like, he has not yet figured out how to, like, even properly interact with the world the right way. He shrinks back down, to the war being over. And I love that he takes his mask off and we don't see anything at the end of this issue. What you kind of got an idea what we're going to see. But I love that they left us with the cliffhanger of, we're going to see that next issue. What's going on? That was a really good ending. A lot going on in issue 10. And this is true of issue 10, 11, and 12. Talk about content. There is an intense amount of content in this story as it continues on.
And these aren't like large, giant size issues. These are standard size issues. They really put a lot of information in there.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things about Secret Wars, the power of the page flip, but also the power of the ending. Each of these issues always end in those moments like, oh my God. You have that, oh wow, kind of moment on every single issue ending, and then going from one issue into the next. They do some brilliant stuff with using how issue 10 ends to how issue 11 begins, even to the point of how the cover of issue 11. I love this cover. We're seeing exactly where it ended last issue, where Doom's standing there with his mask off. You got the heroes all looking at him, all shock and awe. And you can kind of tell what happened. You can kind of see the full length hair, but you still can't see Doom's face. But he's got to be okay. He's got to be changed. He's not the scarred faced Doom. I love this cover, especially how issue 10 just ended. You jump right into issue 11 and you're like, this is awesome.
And when you turn the page, you got like this handsome man.
Yeah.
And I really liked how they drew him, because you're seeing here, like, this is the man he could have become. I like that Doom's recognizing he's got all this power now to do all these things. And in truth, the power, I think he outwardly is looking at them as these smaller, non-intrusive insects that he doesn't have to worry about now. And he's gotten everything that he wanted with that. So he no longer needs to subjugate them, because it's kind of already there in his mind, which is really interesting. So it does lead to later on them questioning Doom. And I really like that it's important to talk about this now. The way he's laying this out on some level seems benevolent and that he means no harm. And the hero's reaction is that. But it does lend itself to the questions they start asking about, okay, I get that he means no harm now, but, and that part is really, really interesting. The villain's reaction also is very, very different. Because they're saying, what's happened to him, he's glowing like that. But I love that the Wrecking Crew, they're like, Absorbing Man's like, yeah, he's selling us out. It was such an interesting little piece there, because now they're in a very different place where they're recognizing that Team Doom is no longer a thing. They are a crew without a leader. So now they're all reverting back to their base instincts. And we've got Enchantress kind of looking at it from her perspective, the Wrecking Crew looking at it from theirs, Doc Ock doing his thing, Lizard being concerned about, man, wouldn't it be great if we had that great guy and actual brainchild of Claw here right now to help sort everything out, which I love the levity of the Claw and Lizard relationship, because he's sitting here saying, where is Claw? Claw is smart. Claw would know what to do right now. And I'm just kind of like, I kind of wish he was here too, because man, would that be funny.
Dude, I'll tell you, they could have done a side issue of Claw and Lizard, the adventures of those two, and now I would 100% pick it up. I would be like, yes, give me that. That would be funny.
I need that to be an animated series. In like Harley Quinn style.
Yeah.
Like what you got in HBO Max with Harley Quinn. Give me a Claw and Lizard animated series like that, and I will watch it in an instant. Put it on Disney Plus. I would follow that. It would be something that would be very interesting to watch. When I look at the kind of stuff that's put out nowadays, it's like they've got Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which is good, by the way, out there. It's like, okay, you've got that property that like people don't know per se, but you're introducing that to a new audience. Like, you can't put Claw and Lizard on as an animated TV series. Why? Tell me why. I don't know. I don't get it. You should put that on there. I would love to see that. I think it fits. I would watch it in an instant.
Yeah, we would watch it.
Wait, what? I mean, again, I'm going to use Moon Girl and... Dude, this is a series. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. They put out a Cloak and Dagger TV series. They had a TV series of The Runaways. Like, they've put out some unique series. So, you say, like, we would watch it like it wouldn't be... You slap that Marvel... I don't know. Here's the catch nowadays. There was a window where you could slap a Marvel logo on anything and people would watch it. I don't know where we're at now. We're at a different time where the Captain America has done well. The current Captain America Brave New World. It's good, by the way. For anybody out there that's going to go see it, I think it's a very good Marvel movie. You know, I'm not sitting there saying like it's not in my top 5, and that's not an insult. It is a good, if you're like, it's Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon, you're like, I want to go to the movies and see something good, I would recommend seeing it on the big screen. There's some stuff going on in that film that is really tailor-made for the big screen. I highly recommend, if you have the option to see it on the big screen, to go see it on the big screen. Otherwise, I encourage you to watch it at home when it becomes available at home. It was a fun ride. And Harrison Ford's fantastic in it. Anthony Mackie is great in it. It's relevant because of that. But what's different is, so there was the first week, it did gangbusters. Second week and third week, you know, it's had the kind of drop-off that you see nowadays. Unless it's that special, like Wicked or something like that has come out, or Barbie, or, you know what I mean? There's been movies that have generated that kind of Oppenheimer, you know, where there's been that longevity. So it's not falling into that category. So I think it's going to be considered a success of sorts. But my worry about that is I think it's a good movie. And I think it doesn't bode well for, I guess I'm kind of correcting myself now. So would Claw and Lizard do well as an animated series? I don't know now. But 2 years ago, yeah, probably would have. So I think that's where we're like what a difference 2 years makes. I think we're like, you could have slapped a Marvel logo on anything. You could have put a butter commercial. You could have said Marvel's butter, and it would have gotten like 1 million views. And that was where we were at like a couple years ago with the Fury, you know, after Endgame. My God, people were gangbusters. And it was kind of cool to be a part of that era. All right. So anyway, Molecule Man and his rise is something we are starting to see here, where in the power vacuum, Doom awokened Molecule Man to what he was capable of doing. And we're seeing him kind of snap out of his shell, maybe take on some elements of his former personality in his reaction. And I like that Volcana's still trying to be like the voice of reason for him in these scenarios. But he literally is like, listen, you want to be hanging out with your new friends and that type of thing? I say nay. You're forgetting about me. You're forgetting about us. And, you know, he's like, you're going to be a traitor to us? Let me show you why not. This is a play that was 11 issues in the making.
Yes.
And I think much more powerful because it waited until now. We've seen him drop a mountain on the heroes, but again, that was under the direction and instruction of Doom. Now, nobody's driving this ship now. He is. He is becoming a more confident man, and I really liked seeing that.
The sheer power this really opened up Molecule Man. And again, I love this. I absolutely love the fact that he's like, I'm going to take out Doom. I'm going to kill him. And I love how they drew Doom there. He's just standing there calmly. Oh, indeed. You know, he has no fear because one, he's Doom, but two, because of the amount of power. And then Doom just pulls him in and gives him a taste of the power, but also frees his mind. Yeah. And I love the fact that Doom did that. I love the fact that Doom recognizes that, you know, he can ignite this power in Molecule Man and still have no fear of him. One, because he's Doom. Two, because of the power levels. But three, because he knows, you know, Owen's going to realize what's actually happening in the universe. When you open the mind, expand it, Owen immediately realizes, okay, this changes everything. He comes onto his own, and I absolutely love where this goes with him.
So what's really great right now is Molecule Man saying, like, hey, I can run things right now. And Doc Ock is not okay with this. But Absorbing Man's the one saying, did you not see what this dude just did? Like, I'm going to be kind of okay with him right now. And that's not for Absorbing Man's first, you know, foray into the power that is Molecule Man. I really liked seeing that tete-a-tete between the two of them because there's a logic to all of that. And I love when these stories have logic. And the fact that they're going back to Volcana's apartment and that this team is kind of separating themselves, kind of just looking out for themselves versus trying to join the heroes in their battle. I liked that distinction. That fits the villain mentality, right? Like, we're going to kind of look out for ourselves right now. And, maybe we don't need to be involved in this battle at the moment. And maybe there's a chance for us to take care of ourselves and get away from this mess. Nobody's concerned about the prize anymore because, that ship is kind of sailed. It's how do we survive all of this? Whereas the heroes are in a completely different place. And, because they've just been victims of what the Molecule Man did. I loved Iron Man carrying the basket that contains it's almost like a Mr. Fantastic knapsack that he's carrying around with all the heroes in it. I thought that was just really, really clever, showing Reed's powers. It also says a lot about the power that is in Iron Man's suit, that he's able to carry all of that weight with the power that he's generating within the Iron Man armor. I keep forgetting that his strength levels are pretty darn solid. Because is Hulk in there too? I don't know. You can't really see, but he's certainly got Thing in there.
See, usually with Hulk, he doesn't go in. He just does this super Hulk jumping.
But from where to where?
I don't know.
So I think he happens to be. I'm guessing he's in that batch because he winds up in the next page. But because I'm only seeing Wasp, Rogue, Thor, and Iron Man doing any form of flying. I'm not seeing any signs of the Hulk jumping anywhere.
Right.
But I'm not seeing him poking out like the way I am the Thing.
Right. I'm assuming he's in there. Anybody who doesn't have flight powers is sitting inside Reed, I'm assuming.
Yeah, because you don't see everybody.
Yeah, right. Because Magneto can fly, and he, you don't see, artwork of him, and Storm can fly, and you don't see artwork of her. So.
Right. Yeah, so what are they doing?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of people off page, I think.
Yeah, which that would be fine too. Maybe that's how Hulk and some of the other people are getting there from the off page situation. It was very cool. We get this cool recap, which I think is needed in the case of just again bringing readers up to speed. I kind of needed it. It's nice to see all of this from the hero's perspective. So recaps like this, when they're just taking a page and some panels to do a little recap, because to me, what I want to start seeing now is the hero's reaction. So I'm always okay with this. I never consider these a waste of time because they bring me up to speed on the story from a very different perspective.
Yeah. Nice little bit, I do like when they do a recap where they kind of tie it into the story. That's always a neat way to do it. So I'm happy with it.
The Owen piece where we get to see another display of power. He's like, we're checking out, people. Like, I have the power to actually get us back to Earth. Like, not like we don't need a ship, we don't need a craft. We're just going to take this whole city and we're going home.
Yeah.
So he actually picked up Denver. And he's like, we're going to fly home in Denver. Yep. That was so cool.
And I'll tell you, I remember this is how the villains get home. Mm-hmm. From the reading and all that. So again, it was really cool to see because it's a little suburb of Denver. Spider-Woman, I loved her reaction because she's like, wait, look, my friends are there. She's got friends and family that are in that little suburb because that's how she got to the planet. But also I saw on Wiki because I was doing some research on Lockheed throughout this. There's some side stories out there about Lockheed and his little friend defending that suburb from other people on that planet. And I was like, oh, that is kind of cool. That's where Lockheed was dealing with, basically was the defender of Denver. That's why Lockheed wasn't in any of the other stories.
Were those in X-Men or classic X-Men or something like that? I seem to remember I seem to remember that now that you're saying it.
I'll be honest, I didn't remember ever reading those stories. I saw, as I said, I just was doing some wiki searching on Lockheed because we had the discussion, is he or a she, and so I was like looking that up, and as I was reading more on Lockheed, I'm like, they mentioned in there that there was a side story that tells what he was doing during Secret Wars.
Yeah, because I think there's eventually a resolution with the dragon, too.
Yes, which, again, I don't remember reading that resolution, but I saw it again. Wiki, you gotta love it.
So as they're flying home, we get Peter, he's basically at this point saying that, like, it's hard for him to sleep with everything that's going on. Because he's got, he's love struck and has not yet been able to reveal that that's a thing. Also, he's kind of in his mind, I think, been given some license to do something because of the fact that the Human Torch was so dismissive.
Yep.
Before, I think he was kind of standing back because of his nobility. He was in love with her, but, like, not reacting to that love. I really like that there's a reason now where I'm like, why wasn't I more mad at him? And I think this is why. Human Torch's reaction kind of being like, she's just some girl and that type of thing. Whereas for Peter, like, no, she's not. Mm-hmm. She's something important. And I really liked how this story arc started taking shape. Because you got to believe on some level that, like, why is Peter in love with her? Where is that coming from? Do we even believe in the relationship? And this sequence was really needed with where it goes with him and her. We also start seeing the beginnings of what's up with the Beyonder. And it's behind Peter that we start seeing that snake-like energy slither on in and take control of the Hulk first, but then Spider-Woman. And I really liked seeing the ongoing mystery of, is that... I always remember assuming that was the Beyonder, but not knowing. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's the right level of, I think it's this, but you don't 100% know yet. And that part, like, I thought was really, really well written. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to agree. I loved, it's funny because memories of stuff and not remembering stuff. I remembered the Beyonder not being dead and doing the ghost jump, but I didn't remember any of these details. Especially did not remember seeing, Spider-Woman spin her web, her psychic, her psionic, web, however she has there. So again, I didn't remember any of that. So reading it this time, that was a really cool moment, just seeing her actually, she can do that stuff. Because, I don't remember what her powers were. I knew she was strong. She can cling to things like Spider-Man can, but she didn't have web shooters. So I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of neat. And then just seeing this, little tete-a-tete against the Hulk and jumping from the Hulk's body into hers, which... So what is
the Beyonder doing right now? To each hero? What is he doing when he jumps in their body?
Takes over.
How is he doing it?
How? Because he's the Beyonder.
But I mean, what is he doing to them in order to make this happen?
Oh, he's just it's one of those kind of like possession type things, take over the brain and all that.
So, who took the Beyonder's power?
Doom.
Don't you think you owe Captain America an apology?
Yes, I do owe Cap an apology. And right now he's saying, I'm very disappointed in you, Jim. Sensei, I'm very disappointed in you.
I suspect that Captain America was right.
You're number one, Sean. I'm just letting you know. I'm letting you know you're number one.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist. I was like laughing. I'm like sitting here. I'm like, so the Beyonder's doing this. We're jumping from toe to toe, and we're even debating over what was going on with Doom.
Yeah.
Oh, this part is great. The whole Spider-Woman piece and everything that was happening right now, I love that unfolding mystery, and I love there's a reaction. Like, there's screams going on, and Captain America jumping to alert, which is very much a soldier, right? Yeah. He's sleeping, as quote-unquote, as much as you can sleep when you want to be at alert, and I love that he gets up and he's right into reaction. She has no memory of what happened, though. So there's blank spots that none of them can be filled in. But what they find here is there was a message that was left by Doom. So you are summoned tomorrow to the Tower of Doom. So there's still no indicator of the Beyonder. So the heroes don't know what's really going on with the Beyonder. And some of the weird stuff that's happening, they're really attributing to Doom. So Doom's message kind of serves as a way for the Beyonder to kind of hide still. Yep. Kind of covered the Beyonder's tracks. What'd you think of the Tower of Doom?
Dude, again, I love it. It does crack me up that, that Doom calls them his temporary quarters.
Yeah.
But, this is the actual, and he has a throne. Of course, Doom has a throne room in there, and just, it's Doom, and the fact that they're like, wait, that thing wasn't there before. It's 100 miles high, and he built it out of nothing, in absolutely no time. Again, giving you an idea on the power levels that Doom now has. And I do love the fact that everybody is respectfully and rightfully in awe of the powers that he is exhibiting right now.
Yeah. The Claw pieces are really, really interesting because Claw has been, put back together, leading into the furthering of the relationship with Colossus. Colossus shows up with flowers, not knowing, I guess, is this even like an appropriate gesture? I actually loved how this felt like a tentative feeling out of two different cultures, which Peter's just trying to emotionally, because they can't communicate like in a traditional method.
Right.
So they're communicating by emotion, by gesture, by posture. And I thought the drawing of this was really, really good because she was able to see into his heart by his presentation and understand this is something different. She cannot comprehend the words. Nonetheless, the essence is clear. She smiles as though seeing him for the first time. So they have this moment that is an unspoken moment between them that is pretty critical right now because I need to believe that they have something if we're going to believe where Peter's at the end of this, right?
Yeah.
And this is critical that they put this in. This is an example of if you're going to go with this arc, this is also why Kitty couldn't be in this. Because I don't know how you made this believable, him being all in on her if Kitty was here.
Yeah, that would have been very difficult and very uncomfortable. And, the Wolverine and Nightcrawler conversation would have been dramatically different if Kitty was right there. And again, I loved, the fact that part of, Wolverine does throw up. It could be a side effect of the healing power. It could be that or this is, something completely different. Who knows?
Well, look what happened with Johnny.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting point.
It's one of those things. I was like, I loved this sequence, and again, I think, when I was a kid, I don't remember at all being angry at Colossus for this. And I think part of it was just because I was a kid, but part of it is the way I always kind of fell into the camp of, is this a side story, a side effect of the healing? Now, again, reading it this time, you see it's not. I no longer believe that.
I agree.
And especially these panels here lead me to believe that it's not a side effect of the healing process, that he actually is legitimately falling for this girl.
Well,
and she's legitimately starting to fall for this weird human.
I think it may have started as that. The infatuation started as that. But over time, it became something more.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I'm with you on the anger piece. I don't know that, I may have referenced being mad at him or something like that. I was disappointed that the relationship I wanted to see take fruition didn't. But that's what you're supposed to feel, right? That's always one of the dangers in when you put together a comic book relationship. You can't have every one of them marry off. You know what I mean? It's the chase is, and, you know, the will they, won't they kind of thing is intriguing. And at some point in time, what you have to do, though, is you have to make the decision of either you let that relationship go and you let it foster and let it grow into something, or you have to end it in some way or put some roadblocks in the way of it to keep the intrigue going from it. This is an example of, this is what had to happen with Peter and Kitty at this time. You had to do something.
Yep.
Or you have them go forward. And I get why they did this. I don't remember, I'm with you, I don't remember being mad at him so much as disappointed in that I didn't get the relationship that I wanted. Because I was heavily invested in Peter and Kitty when this was going on. I get why they did this, and this was smart to do this.
Oh, no, I agree. This is something that I'm enjoying the story more now than I know I did when I was a kid. I liked this story. I thought this was an awesome story.
Yeah.
You know, but now I see a lot more of the intricacies that were woven into it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, man. That's awesome. You know, and again, little stuff of artwork and just, you know, seeing interactions. The next panel, when they're getting ready to roll to Doom Tower, whenever I see Spidey sitting, you know, upside down hanging from a web, I always go, that is awesome. I always just love that look for some reason.
Here's what's really interesting with that. So they're talking about their dreams and stuff. Here's a piece where I've got some questions about Charles Xavier and privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Nightcrawler's trying to go fulfill Professor X and what's going on with Peter. Charles is like, I know.
Yeah.
Where's the ethics of this? You know? There's Charles is not always the most ethical of individuals as far as privacy. And I get he's the most powerful mind on the planet and that type of thing. Although I'd make an argument right now, he's number 2 and 3 on this planet. Maybe number 3 right now, depending on how powerful you think the Beyonder is at the moment. But I don't know. Maybe like this television show that is the relationship of Peter and his alien girlfriend shouldn't be such visual knowledge. It's something where I find that interesting with telepaths, the ethics piece of it.
Whenever talking to people or whatnot, and it comes up, what superpower would you want? I've never once wanted telepathy, just for what you just said. Because I know me. I would not be strong enough will. I'd be reaching inside people's minds constantly. Mm-hmm. And I would learn stuff that I didn't want to learn. You know, as I walk up to somebody at work, they'd say, oh, God, this idiot again. They'd think, this idiot again. And I'd find out, oh, this person really hates me. Oh, I thought they liked me. Oh, no. And then stuff like that I would find out. And then, just eavesdropping on people, I know I would do that. It'd be very difficult not to do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting. So there's a lot of powers where they look really good in the book, but like the logistics of them, are problematic. And I actually really like when comics address that.
Superman's hearing is the other one.
Oh yeah,
I would never want Superman's hearing.
Yeah,
because just being able to hear all those people cry out for help and not be able to help them all, that would drive me insane. Flat out.
Also hearing sometimes things that people vent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we all vent things, even about the people closest to us, that we don't mean. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you're emotional, your highest emotion, you say things that, in truth, you don't really mean at all. You just kind of need to get the erratic and emotion out of your system. Then you come back, take a breath, and you really think through, well, how do I really feel about this? How do I really want to present myself? And sometimes you voice those things out with somebody else, and even that is, you wish you hadn't said it. But imagine if that person heard it, word for word, without context, And that's the problem with super hearing, is being that person where you're picking up what people are saying about you. How does that not have an effect on you? Even if you get some clarification, you know, you can't unsee things. You also can't unhear things.
Right.
And it's a danger sometimes privacy's needed, and you need to respect that privacy. And this is a case where sometimes you can't when you have that kind of power. Like Superman has to really concentrate to make that happen. What happens if he's in a situation where he's fighting a villain and he can't concentrate anymore? Picks up a few stray, things that people are saying that dude shouldn't have heard. Mm-hmm. That I love stuff like that because I think it adds to a sense of, do I really want that? We always have this sense of wonder and majesty about heroes and villains. You know, sometimes the villain powers are something where you're like, oh, I wish I could have that power. Nah, not so much so. Not so much. Flight is the other one where, like, I would love to fly, but there's been too many comics where, like, when it doesn't work, like, people start falling and stuff and another hero has to catch them.
Yeah.
It's like, what if you're in a world that doesn't have the other hero? Like, I mean, you imagine going splat. Because that would be my worry about flying. Would be, okay, yeah, I would be the superhero that's only flying like 3 feet off the ground.
Yes.
Like, this is cool. Like, I'm a living hoverboard, but that's going to be like about it right now and I'm a living hoverboard that's going about as fast as I can run because I can handle the crash if, like, my powers give out.
See, I always thought it'd be neat if you could fly, you ride a motorcycle. Mm-hmm. You know, and you, instead of you letting the motorcycle, doing the motor, you're flying, but, you put the motorcycle in neutral and you're just rolling.
Yeah.
You know, or doing something like that with a car even. You know, I always thought that'd be kind of neat way to handle it. But
it also looks, but here's the thing, it also looks stupid in practice.
Yeah.
Imagine you're wearing your costume and like cars are beeping at you.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be doing it in costume. This is how, because you'd have the motorcycle running, but you're not actually. It's in neutral, so it's just the engine. You're just revving the engine, and you're moving, yourself that way
because of flight,
right?
On a motorcycle,
the wheels roll, and you could just fly, and you're sitting there holding. It's kind of like you're pushing the bike, but instead of you're sitting on it, while you're pushing it.
So in your case, you're really not off the ground at all.
Exactly.
Got it. See, then I just want super speed.
See, the problem I have with super speed is that I know my brain is not quick enough to react, and that would just be a mess of running.
Doesn't your brain like get faster though, like in typical super speed? Like your brain keeps up with what you're doing.
I still would be worried about that. I would still be worried about the running into a wall or stopping and tearing up the sidewalk or destroying shoes after shoe after shoe. So, yeah.
Well, the shoe thing would be definite because that comes like we need you need to start off right away with like some super polymer.
Yeah.
If that's a thing. So Doom has his meeting with the heroes, and I like that he restores and returns Kang.
Yeah.
To his home, which sets up the future timeline's going to be okay with Kang because of the fact that Kang has been restored and returned. I like that he restored him mid-sentence. We got to see the end of the, Kang, what Kang was going to say before he was evaporated. And I like that it was, okay, you're done, boop, back home. Yeah. Which has got to be a disturbing sort of thing that you're seeing.
Well, and again, it shows the power, and I love how the power level and just the sheer confidence and the fact that Doom's like, I don't need this. I'm beyond this. Right. I'm beyond anything that I was before. But he's got some unfinished business in the mortal life before he transcends beyond all of this existence. I love just the fact that you see this level of Doom and how he is different now. He's seriously... and it's funny because you question, is he telling the truth? Is he lying? Is he going to leave them alone if they leave him alone? And I 100% think that if the heroes had just walked away from this, Doom would have transcended or it would have been him and the Beyonder battle would have happened. Round 2 would have happened. But the heroes are...
You don't think the heroes were right? in Doom's ego. Like that's still there. Like Doom's. You don't think so? I'm of two minds on this because So go ahead and go. I'm sorry. Go. So finish your thought. I'm sorry because you're presenting a pathway, and it's a perfectly valid pathway. So go ahead.
So again, it's the initial presentation that Doom is giving. I 100% believe Doom is being honest in his thought process right now. When he's saying, "Hey, you guys leave. I'm offering you a gesture. Take it or leave it." You leave me alone, I leave you alone. I'm just going to, after I finish my business, I'm going to go on. And I do think in Doom's mind right now, he's thinking that. Now, where it gets interesting is if the heroes hadn't done what they did, would he stay on that path? Or would, again, Doom's ego not let him transcend, not let him be happy? Not let him achieve this accomplishment? Would he still have to, in a way, lower himself to defeat his enemies? That's the part where I don't know. Right now, I think if, part of me is thinking Doom is being 100% honest with them in his statement, but his character, his personality, I don't know. And later, we get that great discussion among the heroes, and it's one of those things. I know we're jumping to it right now, but
but hang on, because I want to respond to that, Pete. Or
okay.
are you going to this hero discussion to further your point, or?
It furthers my point and kind of contradicts my point.
Okay.
Because as I said, I'm like, you think back to the discussion. Reed Richards is the one who knows Doom the best,
right?
And that's where I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, hey, I think he's on up and up here. If I was in that room sitting at that table and I heard Reed Richards say, I think we got a problem here, I would have been like Thing and Johnny saying, I trust Reed.
Right.
So in my head, I'm thinking I would be one of those arguments saying, hey, maybe we can just go home and be done with this, and we won't even have Doom to deal with anymore because he's going to transcend. I would have been giving that argument. And then Richards would have said what he said. And I'm like, it is Reed Richards. I do trust his opinion on Doom because if anybody at this table knows this man, he knows him.
See, I think you're right on everything that you said. And let me explain why. So I'm glad that I gave you a chance to finish your thought. So here's why I think you're right on everything you said. Do I think Doom is being honest right now? Yes. The problem is Doom is being honest right now. When Doom continues on this pathway, I think Doom is ultimately going to, where do we go from here? You're not just done. You know what I mean? What is next? And I think when it gets into the what is next is where Doom's going to, ultimately, who Victor Von Doom is going to manifest itself with the what's next. So this will wrap up. Doom's not going to sit around bored the whole time. There's going to be something that he's going to need to, like he got here because he was achieving what was next, right? It's always for Doom the next step to power, the next step to something else. You win, and then what happens? So he's still basking in the victory right now. So as the victor, he's responding to that. And I think that that response right now is genuine. I think Reed's talking about what's next.
Yeah.
And Reed's thinking what's next. So I think in many ways, everything you said, he's not lying right now. I agree with that. But he's also not, he's not looking at what do you feel like 6 months from now, a year from now. And I think those are the pieces that Reed's bringing up. The Spider-Woman is missing sequence winds up being really interesting because of the fact that she's still carrying the Beyonder in there.
Yeah.
So we're kind of continuing to see. And I actually, at this point, I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, where's the Beyonder now? He does become kind of like a Waldo of this, right? Because he went from the Hulk to Spider-Woman. The jumping into Claw was brilliant because it really was him getting into the place that he is connecting with somebody with the power set to be able to feed himself again, right?
But also someone, he recognized that Claw was Doom's right hand. He needed to be close enough to Doom to be able to make his jump. And I think that was kind of neat on how they handled it in...
Well, Doom, but this was the power source that he used to pull the power from originally, Claw.
Yes, but it was... Well, he pulled the original power from
Galactus
with this.
Right.
So I think it's part of column A, part column B.
Well, he does use
power,
but he uses Claw later to pull in the power. That's actually what happens in the story. He uses Claw.
Right. But it's also, I think, part of it, because you think back to when Spider-Woman is, fixated on Claw, and even Cap notices it. That's odd. What's wrong with her? I think it's the Beyonder noticing that's my target. That's why I can go with and be close enough to Doom. I don't think it's just the power set. I think it's also the proximity to Doom.
Well, yeah, you would have to be close to Doom to use the power set, but it is the power set. Like, he's specifically jumping to Claw for a reason. I agree it's to be close to Doom, so yes, we're in complete agreement there. But it's also the fact that this is the source. I mean, tracing back to originally when he pulled the power from Galactus, Claw is the perfect conduit for a depowered Beyonder to be able to use to siphon the power from Doom. It's both.
Right. We're saying the same thing. I think we're just saying it differently.
Right.
I think we're agreeing, but we're arguing.
Yeah, I think the piece where we're differing is I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive. The whole point is for him to get close to Doom to use that power set to siphon. So he needs both. But he does need the power set too, because this is a depowered Beyonder.
Right.
He has to jump between hosts in order to really get where he needs to be. And he needs a host that can actually help him pull this off. He's trying to recreate what Doom did.
Yes. But instead of dissecting Claw, he's using Claw.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Now, I loved the dialogue between Cap and Doom.
Yes.
That again was one of those things that it was brilliant on how it laid it out, how it laid out the future stuff, and also it was kind of neat. Just Cap's going back and forth, just talking to him about it and saying, Cap is being Cap. He's having this conversation with Doom, and I do love after Cap's done, that he's leaving. Well, we found Spider-Woman. I'll leave. Doom knows what's coming. He knows just from Cap's dialogue, just from Cap's interaction, he knows the heroes aren't done with him yet. The heroes aren't just going to let him go. Because Claw's like, hey, what's going on? And Doom's like, the inevitable, I fear. Doom right then, he knew what the meeting was going to happen with the heroes. Flat out. Right then and there, just from that dialogue with Cap and just how Cap's looking at him saying, just making notation on how human Doom appears to be, how he's following some of the base humanistic the personality and whatnot. So I loved these couple pages in that and how it laid down what's to come.
Peter needed this moment. It's a pretty critical one because we have to start advancing this relationship pretty quickly in order for us to believe where Peter ultimately goes with this and what ultimately happens to her.
Yeah.
So these are critical scenes with the two of them to have this sweet moment, and it's one where the relationship's in its infancy, but it's progressing very, very quickly because of circumstances around them. I really like how that feels that way, in this sequence, and then we're left to the part where Cap's debriefing everybody, and they start debating it, and this goes to the vote that we were talking about earlier, where everyone's kind of debating through it. I did like that Magneto voted separately from the X-Men.
Yeah.
It was kind of a neat little piece. I noticed it specifically where, the X-Men are saying their piece, and he deliberately was in a separate panel with his piece, and Colossus was in a separate panel with his piece. Because
Storm, too.
Yeah,
Storm doesn't let Xavier speak for her.
But she was in the same panel.
Yeah, in the same panel, yes.
Yes. So, I mean, the X-Men all voice their pieces in the same panel. Cyclops is the one that I said I think Professor X speaks for all of the X-Men. Storm says her own piece of Storm speaks for herself. And Wolverine actually backed her.
Yeah.
Wolverine's affirmation of it was backing Storm, which says a lot about his respect for her as current team leader. I thought that was a good piece moving forward. But Peter getting his own kind of page as the debate's going on, because he voices the last concerns. And he's like at the space where, I don't know, my life's getting pretty good right now, right? I got my girl, we're kind of, getting things going. I don't know about this. And Peter's even asking himself, am I being selfish? That I'm thinking of all of this. And Cap says to him, only you know that, son. So he's not accusing him of anything. But here's the thing, when somebody says that to you, yeah, you feel like you're being scolded. I mean, it's like, yeah. But yeah. So I mean, it's one of those pieces where, and he's like, I'll say yes, fight. The ending of that, I remember as a kid being like, what just happened? I mean, it was a massive explosion of I'm like, they didn't just do that. And this is something you can only get away with in something like this. Oh my gosh. Doom decimated everybody. Everybody.
And I loved, he waited until they all said, yes, let's fight Doom. So it's 100%, I've got to take out all the heroes now. And, I've been talking about the power of the page flip, power of the ending.
Right.
Right here, you're flat out seeing it. It's the ending of the issue, one big blast, from Doom. And I love the artwork.
But how did Doom know that was happening? No, I'm not going to let you live this down. Because Doom wasn't there, right? I mean, how do you know that was happening?
He's got a listening device. He planted it.
He's got Claw with him.
No, technical. He's got a bug. Yeah. Because they are...
Well, wait, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I will back you up a little bit about this. Man, did the Beyonder give them some advanced tech. So that is possible.
There you go.
It's a very... I will give you that is a plausible answer.
So, there you go. But, okay, so I'm going to quick comment on the artwork on this explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only... I love, they show the shield and Thor's hammer getting blasted from Thor's hand.
Oh, yeah.
Just sheer power. I loved how they drew Reed, because you can kind of see Reed going all stretchy.
Mm-hmm.
And just the, some of the physical reactions, just, this was absolutely brilliant.
Wait, he not only did he go stretchy, you see his body severed.
Yeah.
Which is a disturbing visual, because Reed's lower half and upper half are cut in half. The Thing's cut in half.
See, I didn't take that as cut in half.
Then what do you take it as?
I take it as just the way they drew the energy blast.
Take a look at the way his legs are. Like in relation to the rest of his body.
See,
look at parts of his torso are almost over by Cap. And take a look at Cap's arm. You're telling me that Cap's not being severed there? When did he have a 6-foot-long arm? These guys are being torn apart, Jim. I don't know what artwork you're looking at that I'm not, but Cap's right arm is almost on another page.
Yeah, I can say that one. That's going to leave a mark.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how you look at Cap and you don't look at the other ones and go, they're all being torn to shreds. It's I get you. You can sit there and say, I kind of don't take it as that. You look at Cap, it's very clear what's going on here.
Well, definitely with Cap, you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah. But part of it, again, I wasn't, I'll be honest, all kidding aside, I was not thinking they were getting cut in half.
Oh, Cap!
I was just thinking the way the energy was drawn.
Yeah, Cap to me, when you see Cap, I'm like, that's exactly what's happening there. Cap's arm
his arm's getting removed.
Cap's arm's the giveaway.
Yeah.
So then if you go from left to right on the page and you start with Cap, so then it starts to look a lot more disturbing when you take a look at the other pictures. Yeah. I get your point. If in isolation, if you're just looking at Reed and you're not looking at that piece, fair. But then when you look at Cap, and if you shift from left to right and start looking through everybody, that's where Cap kind of sets the tone for, oh my God, that's what's happening there. Then you start taking a look at everybody else, and they do look visually different when you start seeing what's going on there. And things that you don't see on screen, I think you don't see for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful visual image, as far as just showing power. I marvel at artistic talent when they take something like this and go, all right, we got to bring this to life. And this is something that we, how disturbing do we want to make this? And you got to find the right balance, right? You don't want to completely leave people unable to sleep at night, but you also want them feeling like, I don't think anybody's waking up from this. Because it's very clear from this image, they're done. They are done. So when you get to the next issue after the Big Bang, I don't know what goes on further from that when you flip the page and you see Cap's shield destroyed.
Yeah. I remember as a kid seeing that going, Cap's shield.
Yeah.
Whoa. I 100% remembers that, just having that oh my God moment seeing Cap's shield. Because as a kid, you see the big blast, heroes will be fine. And then you flip the page and they're like, 21 lie dead here. I'm like, dead? Huh? And then you see Cap's shield, you're like, oh my God, what the heck? And they go through, they list all the names of people who are dead. I'm like, wow. They actually killed them off.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that, going, how do they come back?
I like that the healer's having a reaction to this.
Yeah.
Because we saw what happened with Wasp with her, right? And how it had a tremendous effect on her, what happened with Wasp. She still, I think, is in recovery mode from that, to a certain extent. And now she's going back and dealing with something that is far worse in that scenario.
Yeah, and you needed to have the Colossus in her moments for this panel.
I agree.
And again, it's one of those things where I'm like, I like this story. And I love the fact that it's Colossus that she's got that connection with, not Johnny.
Yeah.
She had the initial infatuation with the pretty boy, but she recognizes that the Colossus is one who truly cares for her. And I think that was kind of a neat thing, in that even though they didn't have good communication going on, she could tell by the way who he was, how he acted to her.
The Beyonder as a manipulator is something that becomes really apparent inside Claw's body. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about the fact that he was trying to get close to Doom. So it is more than just using the power set. It's getting in Doom's ear. And I love that about this. Because he plays along, really plays along with being buddy-buddy. Mm-hmm. And until then the next page starts sowing the seeds of doubts. By just saying that, that's what you said. Said. But I like how he's playing it out like he's still Claw with the kind of erratic speech and things like that. He's playing the part, but I like how he's sowing the initial seeds and just dropping them. We're not going to go crazy here. We're going to drop little nuggets and let them fester. Let Doom start questioning himself. We have still got a mortal man who's taken on immortal powers. Mm-hmm. And when you're taking on godlike powers like that, it's trying to deal with what that looks like. I gotta say, ship Molecule Man, if I'm in this story, I think I want to be on Mini Denver.
Yes.
Mini Denver does not seem like a bad way to travel. We've gotten water back. We, likely some stores have things going on. He's actually pretty all right, as far as this goes. Enchantress is able to get this bath thing going to the point where she's able to start some shenanigans again. I like that her thing isn't I've been on the war world for so long, I actually want a bath. No, let's see what I can find out about what's going on back on that planet at all with her own manipulations. I really love that she summons a water elemental.
Yes.
And starts playing around with that piece. That was great. I didn't remember that at all, but it made a ton of sense.
Well, and it's funny. I remember, the Denver planet, the Denver ship.
I do too.
I remember all this stuff going on, but the little manipulations of Enchantress I forgot about.
Yeah.
And the one thing that does make me crack up, if I was one of these villains, I would not be staying at the same apartment. I would be like, hey, I'm going to go find my own place. Go find another apartment, kick the people out of it because, I'm the wrecking crew, and just take over their place instead of everybody being bottled in that one apartment.
It's a burb.
What?
It's a suburb.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd find my own place.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. It's, but again, it's...
We can meet at the clubhouse. Exactly. And get together. But I'm living somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm going to take over City Hall, I think. If I was, if I'm the wrecking crew, because you can easily, because there's no heroes there to fight you. So I'm gonna leave this up a little apartment. I'm gonna go, take over a police station, or take over a hospital, do something, something different.
Is this a lack of trust though? Like keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Where you're sitting there going okay, we tentatively are working together, but I'm not what happens if I leave here? Is it
They're
that?
gonna double cross me.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if they're there. I'm with you on your thinking, and I think the problem is we're not thinking like supervillains.
Exactly.
Because we'd be kind of listen, dude, there's another apartment across the street. Do you mind if I go and crash over there? This is a little too much togetherness. I think that's totally how we'd react. But that's because we're not looking to turn on each other. Whereas I feel like they're I'm not leaving this. You want to leave the apartment? You go right ahead. I'm staying right here, keeping that guy under my eye.
Yep.
Also making sure that he looks at me as an ally. There's a whole politics piece. Although Doc Ock doesn't necessarily feel the same way.
Well, again, Doc Ock is being Doc Ock.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like this.
I do too.
I really do like how they wrote Doc Ock in this series.
Yeah.
Because again, he is going to look at what's best for Doc Ock.
Yes.
Is this what is really good for me? He's got that. He does have trust issues with people, so he's going to have that going on. I loved how, again, Enchantress was Enchantress. This is right here is her being her. Classic manipulation. Just they used her bit dealing with the water sprite to do another recap within the story. Confining it just a little mini recap. But still told nicely in there. And again, it keeps things going with at one moment you can maybe feel sorry for her. And then she does stuff like this. And you're like, okay, yeah, she is evil. I love that.
Yeah. It was everything because the Volcana piece which ultimately leads to that manipulation there. Mm-hmm. And she's going to kill her. Which I feel so bad for this girl because at the end of the day, is she really a villain? Doom created her. And, because of that, she's been Team Doom because she got these powers and things, but I don't know if she got the powers from somebody else and was kind of guided initially by somebody else. Would she have even been in this situation? I question that. It's one of the things I really like about her is her character is complicated. And I actually feel like, she's innocent. I think she's a sweetheart. I think she really does love Owen. And I think he was trying to straighten out his life. And I think ultimately she could be the one that would be good for him to make that happen. But these two kids are dealing with the crowd. They are hanging out with a bad crowd.
They're definitely making bad life choices, and they need to choose better.
I don't know that I'm messing with Molecule Man, though, after I see him tie up Doc Ock like he does.
Well, again, nice flex of the power. Because, initially Molecule Man just appears out of nowhere. And he's just practicing his matter energy conversion, Right. And he's like, so he can, when you start having that power levels, you really shouldn't, try anything. And I love how Doc is the one who initially goes after him, does placate to the weakness that, the personal weakness that Molecule Man has, because Owen doesn't have that kind of stuff where he's like, hey, but when he's in danger, when he's threatened, oh, you want to dance? Let me show you what power is. I really do love the fact that, we see him have those moments where initially he's like, oh, hold on. Whoa, he's a little bit on the timid side. And then he flips the switch and boom, Doc Ock is tied up in the concrete, in the ground, completely wrapped around him. Done. Snap of the finger, Doc Ock's taken out. That's the power levels. I love that.
So it's really interesting that Enchantress is doing this really on some sort of loyalty, where she feels like if she drains the life force. So I guess here's the question I've got. With what Enchantress is able to do, did she have to kill her? Like, she's trying to kill her here, in order to take the power, but she was able to teleport after taking a portion of the power.
Yeah.
The life force, I'm sorry, from Volcana. So she didn't really have to kill her, but she was going to do it anyway. Are you following me? Like why did she... I'm like okay. Enchantress, why couldn't you have said, hey, listen, I'm going to have to take a portion of your life force. I need to power up. It's not going... I'm going to make sure it doesn't kill it. She didn't even entertain the possibility that maybe she could do this without killing Volcana. It was just kind of like, listen, you said anything. So anything means I'm taking all of your life force so that way I can teleport there.
Right.
She didn't even entertain the possibility that she may be able to do it without killing her.
Here's my only defense for Enchantress why she was going to kill her.
Okay.
She needed all of the power to transport back to Asgard and or Earth, wherever she was transporting to. The amount of energy she took only could send her back to Warworld. Only could send her back to the Beyonder planet. She didn't have enough energy in her to go where she really wanted.
She's looking for a full tank of gas.
Yes. She only got a quarter tank. She needed a full tank to make the drive. But she's like, hey, I got what I got, so I'm going to transport back. This is the only place within reach.
Right. It's interesting that she takes the life force from the lizard, but it doesn't kill him. We don't know that at this point, but Dr. Kurt Connors shows up later on. Is that because she took the life force from the lizard side of him or something else?
That's how I read it. Well, I'll be honest with you. This time reading it, that's how I read it. Mm-hmm. She sucked the energy out of him. Right. She was sucking the lizard essence out, Agreed. Not Dr. Connor. So when she was done, only Dr. Connor remained. Plus, I also think the planet had a little bit of healing factor going on towards people.
Maybe.
Because the planet seems to... later on start having rejuvenative powers to people.
Yeah, was that the residual effect of the power transfer, or I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how this all.
Yeah,
because I'm trying to remember. I'm looking through right now to see when that actual residual transfer starts. Oh, and could it be exactly what you're saying, where maybe he is dead here? But the residual effect of what ends up happening is like a wave over the planet, kind of like what happened in Search for Spock.
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely think that. You know what? I love that analogy because I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I think he's dead here.
Well, he looks it. He's a
little charbroiled. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks a little well done. I think especially because she calls him a rotting corpse.
Yeah, I mean we're pretty cut and dry there.
Yeah.
So
she fried him, sucked out his energy.
I love as Doom is resting, the eye shift.
Yeah.
The Beyonder's taking full control at this point, and we were looking for a power change right there. The manipulation continues when Doom wakes up, though. And I absolutely loved everything about this manipulation, because I wonder how much, when the Beyonder's able to pull back, it looks like to different levels. I think there's certain parts of this that are Claw being pushed by Beyonder versus Beyonder being in the foreground, if I'm making any sense.
See, I'm thinking the Beyonder's 100% in the driver's seat.
Okay.
Claw is sitting back there watching all this stuff happen. I don't think Claw is around at all.
Okay. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm wondering, like, I guess I was asking the question, as far as when, because the yellow eyes thing, when we get over there, I took that to be when we start seeing the yellow in the eyes, that's when he's in full control.
It's the way he speaks.
Sure.
That's the sole reason why I think it's 100% Beyonder.
Because it's more clear.
It's much more clear, and
we've got to force because we're not even really forcing the efforts, the double and triple repetition of certain speech patterns. Yeah. That's not even Beyonder's completely seems to have given up on that.
Yeah, we get like one time in the next page where he's like play AA, but even that is kind of like forced because he's talking about. He goes into the whole recap of what happened with the healer,
right,
and her in the aftermath. And that whole time he's talking, there's no duplicate, there's no double speaking. It's very clear, what he's saying. So throughout all this is the Beyonder running Claw.
Here's the thing: if Doom was so benevolent, why, when they said that they were going to turn on him, knowing that his powers they wouldn't have been able to overtake him anyway, did he feel the need to destroy them?
Because he's Doom. He has that weakness. Again,
but that validates, I think, Mr. Fantastic's point.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where we all got. I think he was being honest. I think when he thought he was playing when he was holding all the cards, and they would just bend the knee, so to speak, he was being 100% genuine and honest. And when they were unwilling to do that, and they were actually saying that they were going to fight him, that was when Doom reared his ugly head, so to speak.
Yeah. And also it was capped to the analysis of what Doom's going on. But again, and that's why I said before, I was like, if I was sitting at that table, I would have voted yes. Even though I initially would have been one of those guys saying, hey, why don't we, I would have 100% been one of those guys saying, how about this? But Reed Richards would have been the one to persuade me. Just because he knows Doom better than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I loved how this played out with Claw explaining what happens to the heroes. How the healer goes down there looking for her love. Again, further stating why they had to have her and Peter get together. And she takes every energy she has, heals him, brings him basically back from the dead, and I also love the explanation that he instinctively shifted to armor form. That's why he's mostly dead, if I could steal from Princess Bride. She was able to heal him, bring him back from the dead, but it drained all of her life forces.
Yeah.
She had to sacrifice herself for Peter. And I was like, I love this page. This is awesome.
Yeah, because he was the most, that was, oof.
And then, again, now we're seeing him with repairing Reed, and again, Reed's not cut in half on this. When he puts Reed's body into the healing chamber, Reed is not cut in half. That's why, again, I'm going to go back to I don't know if he got cut in half, thing. But I don't know. I did love the fact that Colossus is able to get Reed going. He recognizes, I've got to get Reed Richards, the smartest guy in the room, going. And then Richards is able to get everybody else going. I loved how this story played out. And how, Claw's telling this all to Doom, and Doom's like, that's impossible. It's impossible. It can never happen. It can't happen. They're dead. They're dead. And even, the reaction that Doom is having is brilliant because, again, it's showing Claw as the Beyonder as a master manipulator, but also does show Doom's ego and his weakness. I loved how that these couple pages of Claw explaining what happened to the heroes, to the point where Doom is really starting to lash out, to the point where he's like, they're dead. No, they're dead. You power the page, flip, in comes Thor's hammer. I was like, yeah.
Doom was referencing constantly. I think this is where there's a lot of foreshadowing, right? When we see Giant Doom, Right. Well, actually, the first Galactus. Let's go back all the way back to when he first takes Galactus's power. We saw the disorientation that Doom was going through and how he had to, the horrifying part of all that. He had to, inside himself, gain some element of control. Then goes into the battle with Beyonder, takes on that power. His form is so huge after that because he's trying to grasp and gain control of that power. Keeps referencing that he's got to constantly maintain control of the power, which that's part of the reason why I also think at that time he was being honest as well. And I think we're in a complete agreement about this. Doom is so heavily focused at that point of, his workload is keeping the power in check. So Doom's got this massive ultimate power, but Doom doesn't want to accidentally do things. Doom's purposeful. He wants to make statements, things like that. So it makes sense that Doom wouldn't want, like, I snuffed out a planet for no reason, And I actually really like that control is critical to the things that Doom does, and they're targeted. So all of that was great. The power being out of control, Doom being out of control, is what Claw was seeking, what Beyonder was seeking. So that way, Doom releasing and unleashing that power, and then Claw taking that opportunity to touch that power, asking for more. This is Beyonder gradually taking more, I don't want to say control of Claw, we've gotten that piece, but more control in general. This is Beyonder's powering up. And the more the Beyonder's powering up, the better position the Beyonder's putting himself in to be able to deal with the Doom piece. This was an incredible, gripping final chapter. The amount of dialogue that they're doing in this, and it's sometimes, I remember growing up and there were dialogue pages that were so full of dialogue that it was hard to find the art sometimes in it. And don't get me wrong, I love the reading part of the comics just as much as I love it just as much as the art part. So I love when you get something like this where it is very dialogue dense, but also has these great pages, like when we see all the heroes rushing in, everyone attack. Oh, everyone's got a nice little establishing shot in that moment as we see. That's an impressive looking team coming across.
Oh God, yeah. That again, this right here is, I loved how this played out, because we have this great sequence going on. We've got some brilliant storytelling going on with Doom. Then you've got some nice pop of action with the hammer of Thor coming through. Then you got the team flowing through, and you just have Claw doing Claw's thing, where Claw just starts throwing bad guys one after another at them, creating these monsters, creating Ultron, creating everything that you can think of, to that great 2-panel spread where, again, it's showing the heroes fighting Claw's inventions. They did a brilliant job with capturing the story interwoven with the physical violence, and it was brilliant.
Yeah. And that was something that really stuck out. I liked Ultron being revived at this moment, this other army being created for the heroes to fight, because we've got to do something with the heroes while the real battle's taking place between the Beyonder and Doom.
Yeah.
And I was glad that they put the heroes in this situation where we got to see, geek out at just a really cool hero battle, where we got to see Thing kind of continuing to go through his transformation, which has an ominous piece about it, because Reed keeps referencing the fact that he thinks he knows what's going on, but will not reveal it to Ben. And he seems to be implying that it's tragic. If I remember the storyline, it is tragic what ends up happening with this. But, I'll sidebar with that for a moment. But this sequence with Thing and She-Hulk, where Thing is gaining more and more control over being able to transform at will when he loses the transformation, that part is great. I did like seeing Thing and She-Hulk team up, because it's foreshadowing what we're going to see at the end of this, what ends up happening with She-Hulk and Thing with this.
Yes.
That part of this, I didn't initially remember when we started reading this, and then as I was reading the first book, that was when I started realizing, like, oh, wait a minute, this is that time. Let's just talk about it. So, spinning out, because here's the thing, at this point in time, if you're listening to this, you've read this issue. Hopefully. If you haven't read issue 12, you should be. If you intend to, without us spoiling it. She-Hulk becomes the Thing's replacement in Fantastic Four. Yeah. And I think these are pivotal moments for that piece. I think she was brilliant casting in it, as far as getting that change happening. I also forgot that the Hulk got hurt here and could not be healed here. Right. He actually needed a splint to be able to, because of the gamma radiation. And there was too much danger of the gamma radiation not causing problems with the machines. So there was no way to heal him up. Wouldn't you have kind of like healed everybody and tossed him in the machine just to see what would happen?
Yeah.
That would be me. It'd be like, Reed, I get your brain and all that, but like our goal here right now is let's heal everybody up and go home. So why don't we afterwards toss the Thing into one of these things and see what happens?
Here's the thing. Again, now I'm going to go along with Reed on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Because what if by putting him in the device, you destroy the device you need to go back home?
Well, that's problematic.
I think that I took it as that was why Reed didn't heal the Hulk.
I'll buy that if that's a thing.
Yeah. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Also, one of Reed's big problems is with that big brain of his, sometimes he doesn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And that is Reed Richards' weakness.
Yeah.
Doom's got his overwhelming ego. That is his problem. Richards sometimes won't pull the trigger. And it's one of those things that,
Well, it's because he knows the danger of doing it.
Exactly.
Without having a plan.
Yeah. I go back to the one of the X-Men Fantastic Four Doom crossover where Kitty's body was being completely just dissipating, and Reed Richards wouldn't help Kitty, but Doom said, "I will heal her. I can heal her where Reed Richards has failed. There's no cost. I'm not asking for anything, simply just to do this because I can." And I remember those issues and all that stuff. That was a really awesome story.
It's interesting. I didn't remember Claw being out on the battlefield for as long as he was when that was going on with the Captain America battle. When we got to see the fact that we're using Doom's like basically wiping out Captain America, and Captain America keeps reappearing. This is because Claw, the Beyonder Claw, has pulled in so much of the power back again from Doom that he's able to undo what Doom does, right?
Yes. This is all Claw doing it to provoke, and all Beyonder doing it to provoke Doom from completely unleashing more and more energy and losing his stability and his control over the power. That's the whole thing. Doom can't control all the power of the Beyonder. And, if he releases it, that'll give the Beyonder the opening to pull the power back into him.
Yeah.
And again, I love how, again, Cap is Cap. Even as all this is going on, he's like, you need an anchor in reality. You're losing it. Cap is offering a hand to Doom, to save Doom's life. Because he's Captain America, and that's what he's going to do. That's what he does and how he does it. And I love that.
Claw was an interesting sort of piece when all this was happening, because Doom is losing it, and the Beyonder's taking back his power. But I love Claw. Doom, forgive me, Doom. The Beyonder, he took over my body. He used my guile, my wits, my cunning to engineer this. I set you up for this. Doom, I am so sorry. It was the visual of the power, though, of the Beyonder siphoning everything back was really, really cool. And ultimately, the disappearing of Claw and Doom winds up being a mystery in this.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great mystery ending as far as what happens to them at the end of this process.
Now, do you know where they actually told the story of what happened to Doom? Because I'm pretty sure they did, but I don't remember.
Was it Secret Wars 2? Or let's get to the end of this and we'll talk about After Effects, because I actually have there in one of the trades that I have, they had like a piece that talked about what happens after this. like just a quick little overview. I don't remember if Doom was referenced in that. Let's get to the end, and then we'll talk more about that. So we get I actually like that Peter and everybody kind of surrounded Peter with the burying of the healer, because they all have a personal reason for that, but then they let him have his own time with her. That was Zaji, if that's how you pronounce it.
I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Zaji works good. I like that.
I'm just thinking because of this ZS in the beginning, but I'm ultimately guessing when that's happening. Peter's realizing at the end too that his suit's different. They've all used different machines than the one that he used. All their clothes are just that, clothes. Whereas in his case, he's recognizing that, I got a problem. My suit, I don't know, problem. I've got something different here. I think that is the first maybe red flag for Peter that he's quickly dismissing, because, at least for right now, that suit is way cool. Like all of the stuff it can do. So I could see him wanting to say, I don't know that I really want to, let's maybe not put up too many warning flags about this, because this is working out pretty well for me right now. I get the feeling off of all this. And there's been nothing weird that's happened with the suit, other than the fact that now he's able to shoot, and he doesn't have to worry about web shooters and all those kind of things. So there's the pros certainly far outweigh the cons, and there's been nothing negative.
Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that this is the first time we've seen Spider-Man's face.
Oh, in this.
Because again, it's the mask disappears while he eats, and then he comes back, because he's always had the mask on because of secret identity stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting that they, have that little moment. But again, I love the fact that he realizes, hey, you guys didn't use the same machine I did. I thought that was something that was brilliant.
Yes.
And
that worked really, really well. Again, leading back to the stage of this is when Professor X first gets his costume. I actually liked Rogue's costume switch too. Like it was time for Rogue to get an X-Men costume. Mm-hmm. Storm got new digs, but Charles Xavier getting this costume, I remember this costume, because this is the start of some inner turmoil in the X-Men with who is really the leader of the team. And Charles is basically saying, oh, of course you're the leader, but now that I'm able to walk, there's going to be a lot of reasons for me to be a overall field leader in these situations. So he's saying, and so you shall, but basically contradicting himself in the same conversation and saying, well, yeah, you're going to be a leader, but now I'm going to be an overarching leader, both off and on the field, because of the fact that I can be there now. So it's the start of a debate. I really loved that there was forward momentum on what is going on in the X-Men through this. It's some intriguing story development. Like I said, we saw the Hulk piece before. I like that Hawkeye, finally now I'm able to use this machine to craft some arrows. So at least he's going back home with arrows. Yeah. And, Kirk Connors, we get to see there. The dragons coming back on the scene was a good moment. It was, I get kind of why Lockheed was off page for a lot of this, because it was intriguing that Lockheed was even there at all. But I like that Lockheed was off the page, comes back with this other dragon, which does lead to stories later. And I'm forgetting where those stories took place, because there were ones that, to your point, filled in the blanks. I don't remember if they took place in X-Men as a backup story or Classic X-Men, which came much later. I feel like it had to have been X-Men backup stories or maybe an annual or something. But I remember reading what was going on with the dragons. Yeah. And it was kind of cool. The shield part was one of the coolest bits for me.
It's funny because I remembered this differently.
Really?
Yeah, I remembered it being the closed machine that fixed it.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Not Cap's sheer willpower. And again, this is where I think part of also what happened with, Dr. Connor he was dead, charred on the ground, but the planet is doing like doing a Star Trek 3 rejuvenation thing.
Right.
So that's why Connor came back, and that's why Cap was able to repair his shield.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're seeing it the same way. I remember vividly this. Now, wait, when I say vividly, as Cap was leaving the room with his shield, I was like, I remember what happens here. But if you'd asked me, like, earlier on in this series, do you remember Cap's shield being destroyed and him repairing it? No. But when I saw it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this moment. So as I was turning it, I was, like, gripped to it because I remember the resolution. I love that at the end, Cap's sitting there. Like, it was a great moment.
Yeah.
And I love the bit with he pulled every single shard out of the wreckage. That was cool. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, and again, yeah. Because one, Cap needs a shield. It's just such a classic part of it. But also it does show, talking about pulling every little piece, every little shard out of the dust, out of the mounds of dust and debris until every last splinter is accounted for. And then it's just by sheer willpower. Think of all the times it saved his life. It saved people, all that, just that sheer energy of what the sheer energy of what the shield is. It's more than just, an implement that Cap uses. It is, something beyond that. I loved how that came through. And again, I remembered him using the clothes thing to repair it, not this. And I think I love this so much more.
Yeah, I remembered what happened with the shield repair when it was happening, but it doesn't matter either way. It was cool what he did with it. So people start heading back home in groupings, and the X-Men are getting ready to head back. And because, basically Reed is able to shift them back the same way that they came. So Peter is, because of the grief of his loss, is going to stay. Until Xavier says, listen, if you stay here, you are sacrificing the life that she gave you. At what point in time are you going to honor that? And I really liked Xavier's, kind of leaving it up to him, but saying, remember what she did for you. What do you want from that? And that was really, really well done. This She-Hulk and Thing bit was really good because Thing ends up having an outfit that is not a Fantastic Four outfit.
Yeah.
Whereas She-Hulk's got the Fantastic Four digs on. So Thing knows what he's doing right away. He's like, I gotta stay here. I gotta figure out what's going on with me. Reed knows. Reed knows that there's something further going on here and is hoping that Ben's journey will lead Ben to the reality of what's happening here. But we're left really wrapping up with the Avengers going back, the Fantastic Four going back, and Ben staying there to try and figure out what's next for him and what is really happening as far as this transformation, and who is Ben when he's the Thing, who is Ben when he's not the Thing, who is Ben Grimm now. This led to a whole Thing series devoted to basically answering a lot of those questions. So Ben stayed there, and he became a Rocky Grimm Space Ranger, I think was the thing that wound up going after this, because he stayed on Batterworld. The Spidey's black costume stuck around for a really long time, led to the whole Venom piece. The Vision took over the Avengers in the absence, but this led to the creation of the West Coast Avengers that Spider-Woman ended up being on. Kitty Pryde and Colossus obviously split up at the end of that piece. The Beyonder came back in Secret Wars 2. So I don't know how much we want to spoil that. There is a story involving the Beyonder that resolves Doom's situation. That takes place in Fantastic Four 288. Okay. So the issue is Fantastic Four 288 if you want to see what ended up happening with Doom. So that would be your answer as far as what happens with Dr. Doom and all of this.
Well, I know what I'm going to be. Two things I'm going to be grabbing. One, Captain America Annual number 8, and Fantastic Four 288.
Yeah, I wonder if 288 isn't a part of Secret Wars 2. So that's something that, because we will eventually do Secret Wars 2. Just because I think this one is so iconic in what it does, But Secret Wars 2, I think, is something that would be a different kind of piece to explore. So I think we do need to touch on that and in comparison at some point in time. Kind of similar to how we did Death in the Family, and we're going to be doing Lonely Place of Dying, on the Batman side of things. It'd be fun to, a little later, come back and visit Secret Wars 2 to talk about that piece. But I'm glad we did this one. Really, really glad we did this one for the pieces that I remember, but also themes that I think mean different things now. Sometimes when you're older and you explore a series, you can touch on things thematically that you wouldn't have at that age.
Oh, God,
so
yeah.
This was fun.
He really grows on you, doesn't he?
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is the email address. You prefer to contact us that way. We have a Facebook group community that I'm really proud to be a part of. And actually, our old one and new one are still running concurrently. I actually wish that Facebook had never shut down the old one because it's left two different locations. But I try to respond in both. So we put in both communities the new episodes as they come up. So feel free to respond in either of those with thoughts on episodes. I love hearing from listeners as far as what you liked, what you didn't like, things like that. We really appreciate you being part of our show. In our show notes, you're actually going to see now that there's a link to a Google form. If you have ideas for future episodes you'd like to see from us, topics you'd like us to put on the plate, we have in our show notes always our running list of things we intend to do. We obviously have multiple times now during this season 2 added in listener requests. So if you have something, that you're passionate about, you'd like to hear us here, you'd like to hear our thoughts on, please drop it in there and, to certainly add to our list. Our plans currently involve doing some older material. We're going to be doing a PAMA episode next, where we're going to be taking a look at, it's a Cleveland independent comic, and that leads to a miniseries called Tap Dance Killer. So we're going to be doing an independent, for 2 episodes, we're going to be doing that. And then we are going to be jumping to an older Batman story. We're going to do Lonely Place of Dying with a very special guest. And then we are going to be jumping to some newer materials. There's some crossovers and things that are going on that we would like to do on the show that are current things. And then we'll kind of keep flip-flopping between that. More modern stuff into classics as we go forward. So certainly add your feedback on what you'd like to see, old or new, on the podcast, and most importantly, tell us where you'd like to see it. RagingBullets.com is the show website. As we release new episodes, we like to blast them out to you. We have them on X/Twitter also as well, and our Facebook fan page. If there's some social media that you'd like to see us on, please let me know. That's kind of our primary methods right now, but if there's something that's more convenient for you, I'd certainly like to blast out to something else that, as a listener, would make you more aware of the ongoing things that are going on with our podcast. We try to be available on all podcasting platforms. The About Us section of our show website is where you can connect with our personal Facebook and other social media, gaming platforms. I'm a regular co-host on Is It Jaws? Every 2 weeks, we release a new episode. Paul Spataro is the main host on that show. And we have a team of people that rotate through based on different film series that we review. So if you want to hear us do reviews on any kind of film, please join us for those in-depth conversations with some great guests. I was recently on an episode with Back to the Bins, where we did episode number 12. Issue number 12 of Camelot 3000. And we actually have a matching release on Is It Jaws of the film Excalibur. So those are kind of a 1-2 punch on those episodes. So it was nice to be able to guest spot on Back to the Bins and talk some comics on that show as well. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segelin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
Remember, over at DCBS, we still have time to get some of the great free comic book day sales, and there's also Superman Day 2025. Various covers, various titles, ranging from prices as low as 38 cents all the way up to $8.99. So thank you, DCBS.
over at InStockTrades.com. They always have their deals of the week, and this is where I always look first. Green Lantern Love and War, trade paperback, Volume 2, $19.99, regularly 50% off, only $9.99. Hack/Slash Deluxe Edition hardcover, Volume 5, $49.99, 50% off, only $24.99. Marvel Masterworks, The Invincible Iron Man. They have two different covers, $75 regularly, 46% off, only $40.50 for the cover of your choice. And Penguin trade paperback, Volume 2 hardcover, All Bad Things, $19.99, regularly 50% off, only $9.99. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show and providing such great discounts. It's a great way to manage costs when you are a comic fan trying to maintain a budget, but to read more. Our next episode, like I said, we're going to be back. We're going to be talking about Apama issues 10 and 11 and starting to talk about Tap Dance Killers crossover. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to that material from the Heroes Tomorrow website. If you don't have it, it's a great way to get it. It is available on things like Comixology and things like that as well. So there's a lot of different vehicles to be able to get this if you don't already own this material. If you're unsure about buying it, those two episodes, we're going to do the same thing we do here. We're going to do like a two-parter. So there'll be like a cliffhanger episode, and then you can join us for episode. If you're enjoying it, you can pick up the material and join us for episode number 2, where we're going to wrap it up. So that's going to be a two-parter. And then we're jumping to Batman Lonely Place of Dying. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
When Sean and Jim decided long ago to do a weekly comic book podcast show, they started slowly, then grew strong. To listen now, you can't go wrong. The Raging Bullets Comics Podcast Show.